Good morning, all, and thank you for joining us. My name is Eduardo Royas, and I'm Managing Director at ICR on the team's Modern Mobility and Sustainability Investor Relations practice. Today, we're delighted to host this fireside chat with Nuvve Holding Corp, which trades on the NASDAQ under the ticker NVVE. Nuvve is a company that has developed proprietary vehicle-to-grid technology, which enables electric vehicle batteries to provide energy back to the electrical grid in a qualified and secured manner. With us today from the company is Gregory Poilasne, the company's co-founder, chairman, and CEO. Gregory has more than 20 years of experience in the startup and technology space and has advanced degrees in engineering and business. Today's session is really focused on those who are new to the Nuvve story. We'll be jumping straight into Q&A in what we hope will be an educational session that leaves you with a well-rounded understanding of Nuvve and the company's technology, business model, and market landscape. We will also address questions from the investment community that are top of mind today. Before we can jump in, I do need to breeze through some disclosures. Some of the statements in this webcast may comprise forward-looking statements within the meaning of the Private Securities Litigation Reform Act of 1995. Actual results may differ materially from those expressed or implied in the forward-looking statements. Further information on risks that could cause actual results to differ from forecasted results are included in Nuvve's annual report on Form 10-K for the fiscal year ended December 31st, 2021, its quarterly report on Form 10-Q for the quarter ended September 30th, 2022, and subsequent filings with the SEC. So with that out of the way, let's get into the Q&A this morning. Gregory, Nuvve describes itself as having an intelligent energy platform. Through the company's proprietary vehicle-to-grid or V2G technology, the company can generate savings or outright proceeds for its EV owner customers while taking stress off of the grid. Please help us better understand your technology.
Good morning, Eduardo. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for making some time this morning. So yes, absolutely. So the ability of the platform that Nuvve has is a virtual power plant capability that is able to aggregate vehicles and to use their battery, as you said, not just to charge the vehicle, but also to use that energy or use as power capacity in order to provide a variety of grid services. These grid services is basically a synchronization from the needs from the grid and the ability of the energy of those vehicles. People are very familiar with what I would call V1G, which is the ability of adjusting the charge rate of the vehicle. What we are doing is, at the right time, we're also using this energy and discharging the vehicle in order to provide those grid services. Let me give you a few examples of the type of grid services that we've been able to do. So when this platform was created, the first type of service it provided is a service called frequency regulation, which is matching the gap between the instantaneous consumption versus the instantaneous generation. Usually this is performed by generation plants where the output is adjusted. Here we are basically coming with batteries that have the ability of respond very fast. The only difference compared to many other batteries that are doing that today is that those batteries are inside vehicles. There are many other services that those vehicles are able to provide. Here in the US, for example, the service that is very often asked for is what we call peak shaving. Here in California or in the Northeast, towards the end of the day, the summer, temperatures are rising, people go back home and they turn the AC. This is the peak that is created on the system. So the ability of reducing that peak, reduce the amount of energy that is required from the generation side and from the distribution system. This can be very, very valuable. For example, doing frequency regulation in Denmark now for more than 6 years, we've been generating more than $2,000 per vehicle per year on 10 kilowatt charging stations. So that's about $200 per kilowatt year. Those peak shaving, for example, in the Northeast, it's about $200 per kilowatt by doing 50 discharge during the summer. In the same way, you can do that in Rhode Island for $300. So if I give you a very specific example of a school bus that would have a 60 kilowatt charging station, this is a revenue opportunity of $12,000 to $18,000 per year, compared to the cost of charging the vehicle, which is in the order of $2,000 to $5,000. So you can see that the value of providing those grid services with the virtual power plant capability is very high.
Great. Thank you. Could you talk a little bit about the company's background and history, how long you guys have been around, where some of the places you operate in and all that with that established?
For sure. So the technology was invented by the Professor Willett Kempton at the University of Delaware in 1996. And it's really started from looking at EVs. At that time, there was a previous wave of EVs. And first of all, cars are parked most of the time. And he thought, hey, you have plenty of time to recharge that vehicle. So if you put a little bit more power electronics, you are not just charging the vehicle, but you're also able to discharge it, meaning taking AC from the grid, putting DC into the battery, and then taking the DC from the battery and discharging it back to the grid AC. Then the second step is this ability to aggregate the vehicle and combine them to make them look like a big battery or a virtual power plant capability. So we launched then the company in 2010 after I met with the Professor Willett Kempton, and we actually launched commercial operation in Denmark in 2016. Willett, through his activities, that started to do grid services here in the US in 2009. And we also obviously took that over. There is a significant amount of patents that were developed and that give us a very strong position on the IP side around vehicle to grid. We are today very focused on 3 geographies. As I said, we started in Europe, the Nordics, Denmark, Sweden, Norway, but also France, Germany, UK, also through our partnership with EDF and our joint venture called Dreev, and then also Spain, Portugal, where we have different activities over there. Here in the US, the US is very dishomogeneous, so you have very different ways the energy is being managed. California is obviously a great place. As I said, the Northeast, New York, New Jersey. We've also announced partnership with companies such as Vistra, which allow us to begin activities in Texas. We also see activities in Colorado, Arizona, Nevada. So very, very selective in where we are deploying our infrastructure so that we can take advantage of the grid service that we can provide today, because those grid services are not available today everywhere. Finally, we've had a partnerships with Toyota Tsusho, which is the trading company part of the Toyota group. And so we are managing a variety of batteries in Japan today, where we've also demonstrated vehicle to grid and are working on opening the market for vehicle to grid in 2024.
Excellent. So you touched on this a little bit, but just to make it very clear for the audience, since this is all new stuff. So what is required by an OEM in order for a vehicle to be able to participate in V2G? Can any electric vehicle just plug in and do it? And then on the flip side, what is really required? How do you get entrenched with the utilities? What's the process there? That feels like a very an environment that's very burdened by the regulator. And I know you just mentioned the US being an example where, it's different across different regions. So just make sure we can all understand, okay, is there something special about the EV batteries, something special about the vehicle? How does that work?
So really, at the battery level, there's nothing special, right? Because when you have an EV, you charge it and then you discharge it while you're driving. Very often, you also have something called regenerative braking, which means that while you are braking, the battery is getting recharged. So the battery is used to go up and down as you are driving your EV. Now, as it relates to communication, and the ability of the vehicle to discharge through the charging station, there is a few specificities there. You can do that in 2 ways. The technology was initially developed using what's called a bidirectional onboard charger. In each AV, you have a charger which takes the AC from the grid, convert into DC into the vehicle so that the energy goes inside the battery. With some upgrade to that onboard charger, you're able to then also discharge, convert the DC from the grid, the battery back into AC, into the grid. This required a special charger that was initially used. So there is nothing new in the technology, right? Started in 2005, after we were the first prototype that were put together. So nothing new there. And quite a few OEMs are actually developing EVs today that have onboard bidirectional chargers. This requires a little bit more detail as it relates to the interconnection, but I will come back to that in a minute. The way we are doing that with the school buses today is through what we call the DC interconnection, meaning the conversion of AC to DC, DC to AC is done inside the charging station. And then you simply have a DC connection between the charging station and the battery that's inside the vehicle. And that DC connection allows you to take the energy both ways. Now, what that means in both cases, you need to have some type of communication protocol that allows a platform to talk to the charging station and then the charging station sending these instructions to the vehicle. The protocol that we initially used is a protocol called CHAdeMO on the DC side. And this is working with Nissan Leaf, ENV200, which are light-duty vehicles. Now here, the common technology used is called 15.11.8 is the protocol of communication. So far, until recently, the 15.11.8 protocol did not understand the discharge instruction. The latest version that is being rolled out right now understands it. And so you're going to see vehicles that are coming right out of the production line and that are able to do vehicle to grid. The one we are using today to do that have had some special upgrades to their software in order to be able to discharge them. On the utility side, there are two aspects, right? One, the utility cares about what you are interconnecting. Now, again, nothing new there, right? When you have solar on your rooftop, you are discharging energy back to the grid. So the ability of taking energy from the battery and putting it back to the grid is something that is regulated through a certain amount of interconnection protocol that utilities have been enforcing, I would say, since rooftop solar has been rolled out. So that's the ability of interconnecting to the grid. The second step is the ability of accessing some type of market or value, and that varies quite a bit. Markets, there are many layers of markets within the grid. You can provide, for example, here in California, we have a program called the Emergency Load Reduction Program that actually started this summer, and where we're the first one to participate with school buses. And with this program, we are basically dealing with the utilities, but this is an aggregated program, meaning we might have school buses here in San Diego. We have school buses in Cajon Valley School District. We have some in Ramona, which is like 20, 30 miles away. We have some also at the San Diego Unified. And all those vehicles are put together and they are appearing as a single resource for San Diego Gas and Electric while we are providing this emergency load reduction program. So there is a variety of how all those markets are, or the services are being provided. What's very important is for the platform to have the ability to adjust based on where the vehicle are connected to the rules and regulation associated with providing those services.
Great. I think that was immensely helpful. Thank you. I think the audience really appreciate that. I think we've established what Nuvve does. Since this is an investor call, let's move on to how the company generates revenues and maybe some rough level overview on the margin structure.
So the way we are really, as the core of it, we are a technology company, and we are providing those grid services with these assets that are not ours, that are our partners' assets, customers' assets. Those assets are vehicles, right? So obviously the primary purpose of the vehicle is for somebody to drive it. So we're making sure that one of the service you're providing is making sure the vehicle is ready for the driver when the driver needs it. But then we're also providing those grid services. So I shared some number with you of, for a school bus in the Northeast or here in California, it's between $10,000 and $12,000, going up potentially to $18,000. The way we are structured is we keep 30 to 40% of that revenue for Nuvve, and then we share 60 to 70% of that revenue with the owner of the assets, which is the owner of the vehicle, the owner of the charging station. And that can vary, right? It could be a school district that own that. It could be a fleet operator / owner that owns those vehicles and those charging stations. So that relationship varies from place to place. So again, 30, 40% for us, 60 to 70% for the owner of the assets. Then we're also looking at a variety of potential other services that can be provided. I've talked about protecting the battery also on top of making sure the vehicle is ready for the driver, which basically come with our service, fulfilling our commitment to the grid. The third piece is protecting the battery that's inside the vehicle. And in some cases that can allow us to improve the battery warranty, because it's proven that at the minimum, vehicle to grid has no impact. It's well managed onto the battery. But also in the case of a school bus that gets to be parked 3 months every year, that can create some significant damage to the battery if you're not doing anything with that battery 3 or 4 months every year. So the ability of discharging the battery while the vehicle is parked for a long period of time can allow us to improve the battery life. And these other services, so outside of providing a grid service, these other services are really what I called, charge point operator services that we are doing today. And we might keep this part of the operation inside the company, or we might split over time where ideally Nuvve is very focused on the technology and the grid services. and then is working with different partners in order to reach out to the end customers.
Right. And today, given, a lot of this is still nascent, you guys are also seeing the market with hardware that's integrated with your technology as well, right? The charging station hardware, that's part of the model. Not the end goal. You don't want to sell charging hardware, correct? But that's part of the business today and for the foreseeable future.
Yeah. And that's absolutely right? The revenue that we are seeing today as different components, right? This grid service, but obviously, we have to demonstrate it ourselves, right? We should not expect anybody to do that work for us. And so we are providing a full turnkey solution today. So the other pieces of the revenue that we have today are the sale of that charging station. They're usually running between $40,000 and $50,000, and it's a 20% margin that we have on those charging stations. We also have created a joint venture with a partner called Stonepeak. Stonepeak is a large private equity. They have about $50 billion under management, and they committed to spend $750 million on deploying capital to support school bus deployments. Through that, Nuvve owns 51% of the common shares, and therefore is consolidating the operation from Levo. Levo is providing a full turnkey solution that can include the financing of the vehicle and therefore receive a monthly payment by the school districts corresponding basically to the lease of the vehicle. And so that lease amount also gets consolidated into our revenue. We still have also some revenue coming from different pilots that we have started, or that we are starting in some cases to demonstrate new applications. And this also gets combined into our different sources of revenue. So again, some hardware sale that is in the short run, some leasing associated with providing the vehicles through our joint venture, Levo Mobility, some project money that we've been getting by keeping and demonstrating more advanced services, and obviously the grid services that we're able to provide with those vehicles.
Great, very helpful. Could you talk a little bit about the competitive landscape and how you guys think about that?
Yeah, so I think what's interesting there is vehicle to grid is something that is starting to resonate with people. And the vehicle to grid technology is different from providing one application, right? So everybody has heard about the F-150 and the ability of providing energy to your house when the grid is down in your neighborhood. And this is actually quite complex to do, but this is one application, right? What we are providing is really an operating system where you have the ability to provide a variety of grid services, which is why we have deployed our platform around the world. And then those services are being integrated into our environment. And this operating system allows to focus on providing services at what we call the independent system operator level, at the distribution grid level, but also saving behind a meter, such as time of use optimization and demand charge management. And I think this is a very different perspective. This is the same thing as you look at your iPhone and, do you have the calculator inside, or is it the environment in which the iPhone is able to provide a variety of application that you have in the middle of your palm today? So really our approach has been an operating system for vehicle to grid rather than an application by application. And this is why it's giving us a platform, our GIVE platform, that allows us to develop at scale those vehicle to grid services through our virtual power plant capabilities. The technology has been demonstrated in 2016, for example, having up to 20,000 unidirectional vehicles that were connected to the platform in the city of Amsterdam with a partner over there. And we were able to provide a variety of grid services that was including some very demanding grid service, such as frequency regulation. And so to our knowledge today, the Nuvve platform, the Nuvve GIVE platform, is still the only platform that is qualified by multiple system operators around the world today. And we've proven that again when we've done vehicle to grid, those emergency load reduction program here in California with a variety of school buses, going from Lion school buses to Bluebird school buses and other partners such as BYD that we've already announced as well.
That's super helpful. Clearly an evolving landscape. Others are going to try to do the same in B2G. What's Nuvve been doing in the last couple of years, months, however long, to really try to stay ahead stay ahead when it comes to its technology leadership position?
So now I've talked about this environment, right? This operating system where we are able to provide those variety of services, again, accounting for the needs for the driver, accounting for the commitments to the grid, and protecting the battery. So to help standardization, we have partnered with a company called Switch, which is really focused on the hardware and software, actually the software that goes inside the charging station, and implementing those advanced standards that are enabling the vehicle to grid capabilities. And so Switch is a very strong partner of ours that is established in Europe initially, but we're also helping to establish themselves here in the US. We've also integrated an AI platform, right? And again, as a small company, you cannot do everything. And so we've partnered with a company called 2021.ai, and we've established a partnership called Astrea that is able to provide forecasting, right? And initially, our forecasting was refocused on, hey, what are the combined vehicles that are going to allow us to provide grid services over the next 24 to 48 hours? And so basically, we are coming up with the probability that a vehicle is going to be connected over that window of time in order to provide the grid service. But by providing that, that means we're also able to establish when a vehicle is going to be actually leaving. And so now we can enhance the service that we are providing to the end customer by anticipating when the vehicle is going to be truly leaving and making sure that the vehicle is ready for them. We've also announced some partnership with a company called Swell that is providing consumer home solar plus storage and a very much synergistic perspective on grid services. And so we are working with Swell on developing solutions that will be provided to consumers in their home. And this is a way for us to start looking into the consumer space.
Great. So you've spoken a lot about the electrification of the school bus market. I think people associate Nuvve with the school bus market, but we've also heard a lot recently about the sluggish pace of EV adoption in this market, despite a lot of positives happening on the regulatory front and with federal money. So could you talk a little bit about why the school bus market and then what the dynamics are today and some of the headwinds that you've been facing here?
Yes. So the school bus markets, if somebody had told me, 15 years ago that I would be working in the school bus market, I don't even know, growing up in France, that I was very familiar with it. But it's 500,000 vehicles across the US, 600,000 vehicles across North America. They're transporting 24 million kids every day. It's the largest transportation system in the US. Now, if you were to think that all those vehicles were converted into electric vehicles and connected to a 60 kilowatt charging station, the revenue opportunity based on the numbers I shared with you would be in the order of $4 to $5 billion per year. So it's a very big market on its own and can bring us some very significant revenue. Now, a year and a half ago when we started Levo, with our partner Stonepeak, the cost of a bus was $325,000, and we had clear visibility into the cost going down to $240,000 to $250,000. Keep in mind that a traditional bus is $125,000, an internal combustion engine, but the cost of maintaining those buses is much higher, and they don't have the vehicle to grid capabilities, obviously. So we thought the cost of a bus would be $240,000 to $250,000. Now here we are 18 months later, and the cost of a bus today right now is at the minimum $375,000 going to $425,000. We've heard some price going all the way to $550,000, and that's driven by all what we are very familiar with, right? The inflation that was driven by the supply chain issue, and this is what's causing some slowdown. Now the government is extremely supportive of electrification of school buses because you are providing clean transportation for the kids, which is part of the safety of what you expect from school buses. So the ability of converting those buses into electric school buses is a very high priority for the government, and the government committed $5 billion through the EPA across 5 years, from 2022 to 2026. So we actually worked with many school districts in order to file with them, and the EPA decision was coming out in October, but which means that unfortunately Q3, everybody was waiting for the outcome of the EPA before making any decision, which has been slowing drastically the Q3 outcome. Now, the great thing is the EPA actually upgraded their offer from $500 million for this first year to $1 billion. And that $1 billion means about 2,500 to 3,000 school buses, which school districts are to place purchase have to place POs before May. And so they're all right now scrambling to go through that process in order to place the POs for those vehicles. And this is going to happen for the next 4 years after that, about $1 billion per year. So there's another $4 billion that's going to come out of that. So this obviously now is opening very, very attractive opportunity for us. And we did actually 61 school bus application ourselves. We know that we won. We actually did 225 and we won about a quarter of it, which is the average ratio. We also had 28 others that we supported. But we have a lot of other partners that are coming to us now and that are asking us to help them through those deployments at the same time. And so, though on the one hand, there's this accordion effect associated with the funding that is absolutely required today for school bus to be going out. There's a very strong support from the government, and that money is not just a support on paper. That money now is being made available and is helping accelerate the deployment of those school buses. That's going to bring the cost of buses back on track, and it will make the business model to be developed for Levo right in the middle and allow us to be much more aggressive in how we are scaling the business within the school bus.
Great. It looks like we only have 2 or 3 minutes left, so maybe we'll do kind of a two-part. In light of what we're seeing with the market dynamics and the sluggish pace in the EV bus market, on the one hand, what are you guys doing? Are there other avenues that may be a little bit quicker to help you deploy your technology? It seems like the opportunity set's really pretty limitless for you guys. And then on the other hand, what are you guys doing in terms of controlling what you can control, responding to a slower ramp in the business than you would have expected?
Yeah.
Obviously, it's a very common question today.
So the vision has always been that Nuvve is a platform, as I said at the beginning, that comes on top of existing infrastructure, and we've done that in 2016 with some partner that then later on got acquired, and so it kind of stopped this partnership at the time. But now we have significant partners that we've been re-engaging with, and that we are working on integrating their platform with our platform so that their infrastructure can be controlled and synchronized with the needs from the grid. This is done, for example, with one of our partners that has a large amount of DC fast chargers distributed across the Nordics, and with whom we are in the process of integrating so that we will be able to synchronize those charging stations with the need from the grid, and therefore improve the overall operating cost of that infrastructure. We have also some other partners that have transit bus depots, where it's very demanding from a recharging capabilities for the transit bus, much more than the school buses. So V2G is not always the best outcome, and actually unidirectional infrastructure can provide also attractive grid services if they are used very, very often. And so, you're talking about very large capacity, much more than the capacity we have under management today, that we are working on integrating with those partners in order to provide those grid services, which is going to be accelerating our deployments, jumping over deploying the infrastructure that we are doing in the school buses, going straight into managing this infrastructure that is already deployed, and going straight into this recurring revenue, these long sustainable business models that we always had in mind as we've been working on deploying the platform here. The third piece that is obviously very attractive, and we talked a little bit about, is the consumer space, right? With our partnerships with Swell and also OEMs that are coming to us, initially asking us to help them make their vehicle to grid. This gives just gigantic opportunities, right? When you think about in Denmark today, with consumer type vehicle, we are generating about $2,000 per year. But so let's say we're only generating $500. And let's say you have 500 million EVs that have V2G around the world. This is a $250 billion market that is in front of us. This is a very, very large market, very large opportunities. We are the leader on this subject. We have services deployed in many places around the world. We have partnerships that are allowing us to demonstrate the revenue that can be generated. We have very strong IP on the subject. And so that's why we think we're extremely well positioned to move forward in the subject. Now, we are not at the forefront. The vehicles have to come out, but the forecast on the vehicle is always wrong. It's always too low. Every year, the actual numbers are larger than the forecast. And so we are very, very enthusiastic about the future and the ability of our platform of generating revenue and the financial future of Nuvve.
Great. Well, I think we could probably go on for hours, but we've hit a limit here. So Thank you to everyone who tuned in for joining this call today with Nuvve, and we hope you found this insightful introduction. If you do have any follow-ups, please feel free to email us at Nuvve, so NUVVE @icrinc.com, and you'll find that email on the IR website or at the bottom of our new press release, and I'll get back to you. And Gregory, thank you, of course, for participating on this chat today. If you have any closing line or two, please let us know. But otherwise, thank you.
Thank you, Eduardo, and thank you, everybody. Again, we are very, very excited about what we are doing. I studied Nuvve in 2010, which we knew was very, very early, but we are right at this inflection point. And though the supply chain issue has been giving a little bit of a hiccup maybe into the overall system, we know that we are at the right place and that we have the opportunity to provide great services to the end customer and really help the integration of the EVs into the system, which is the only way those EVs are going to be deployed. So thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.